is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Coaches, are you looking to get a shooting machine for your team but don't have a lot of budget left? This month, our friends at Dr. Dish are making a shooting machine purchase more affordable than ever. Secure your own Dr. Dish CT Plus for as low as $3,900 down when using Dr. Dish's Buy Now, Pay Later payment plan options. These plans are for schools only and have zero interest, no monthly payments, and no hidden fees. Take advantage now while supplies last. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Ted Hotelling, head men's basketball coach at the University of New Haven, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its Playbank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Lindsay here with my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight, and it is time for Triple Double number 16 with Rob Brost, head boys basketball coach at Bolingbrook High School in Bolingbrook, Illinois. Rob, welcome on.
Hey, thanks for having me again. 16. We're getting right up there. Now they're going to start calling me old.
I'm really looking forward to hearing your Hall of Fame speech where you mentioned 16-time member of the Visiting the Hoopheads podcast. Rob,
that's right. It's going to make the speech. It's going to make the speech, and I'm going to have it recorded just so I can play it back for you guys.
Okay,
there we go. We'll be sure to include that in one of the episodes without question. The unedited, unabridged, uncensored version of the Hall of Fame.
400 plus wins and 16 time yes. So anyway,
that's right. You're not going to be like Michael Jordan and trash everyone on your way up to the Hall of Fame speech right now.
It'll be exactly the opposite. Actually, there's no way I could have got anywhere close to that by myself. So every little bit helps a guy like me for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So tonight we're going to throw 3 topics at Rob and bat them around a little bit. We're going to start with topic number 1, which is pregame warmups for your team. What's your philosophy? What do you like to have your team do? You leave the locker room, you get out on the floor. How do you go about putting together the pregame? What's that look like for your team?
Yeah, I think like so many of my philosophies that you've asked me about, this is really kind of molded into what it is now, and it's definitely a change from when I first started coaching. And so, when I first started coaching, I wanted everything to be exact. At the 15-minute mark, we were going to start with tipping, and then 13-minute mark, we were going to go to this, and 10-minute mark, we're going to go to this. At the 8-minute mark, we're going to have captains. And so, it was very rigid. Now, I just want my guys to be ready to go. And so, to be quite honest with you, I put my assistants in charge of this, and they have latitude to do whatever they want with it, with the only caveat being that the players need to be ready to go. So if a player feels like he wants to zigzag dribble, it's not that we're all doing different things, but we talk about it beforehand, right? And our assistants go over it with them, and then we actually practice it. And so, it's not complicated. We do 2-line layups, we do a little shell, and then we shoot. We play in so many different arenas and so many different backdrops and so many big different gyms. I want, especially our guys that play a lot, to get shots up in that facility. And if we're fortunate enough to have a walkthrough beforehand, that's primarily what that is for as well. So I want the warm up to be mostly shooting so that they can get as comfortable as they can with that.
When your guys are shooting, your main guys, are your other guys primarily then rebounding and kicking out to them? Is that sort of how it works? Okay,
and so
gotcha.
We have the top 7 or 8 guys do most of the shooting. Now, obviously, everybody gets to shoot a little bit, so it's not like we're exclusive to those guys. And I want, during that time for our guys to have autonomy to do what they see fit. Some guys, a couple of our top guys, like to stretch, kind of just static stretching on their own. At the beginning of that, whatever 6 or 7 minutes that we're just free shooting. And some of our other guys zigzag dribble and work on some passing and some other things. So I want them to have autonomy with what is happening, but still within the confines of getting ready. And then, obviously, if we've had 5 or 6 games where we've struggled at the beginning of the game, then we might think about changing it. But that hasn't really, been the case. Like I said, I used to be really rigid in what's going to happen with the 15-minute pregame warm-up. Now, I don't even really pay attention to it, to be honest with you. I'm just, making sure that, I'm ready with what I need to be prepared for. And so that when the guys need me, that I'm ready for them.
Why did that change, Rob?
I think, I would start games frustrated and the game hadn't even started. Because, I would see, so-and-so doesn't even have a sweat going. And then I would be irritated before the game even started. And then said player would be fine. He's ready to go. And so the issue was me, not them. And so I think as I've matured, as a coach, I don't ever want the problem to be me. And I was the issue with that because I thought everything had to be done a certain way. And the truth is that each player, kind of gets ready how they see fit. And we talk about that. We talk about, hey, are you prepared? Are you ready? Do you need to talk to an assistant coach about your matchup? Do you need to, static stretch? Do you need to do the band work? Whatever it is that gets you ready after we do 2-line layups and we run out, obviously, as a whole. And then after that, I want it to be shooting and them getting prepared, however that is for them. And so I think each player is a little bit different. We have, like this year's team, we have a couple guys that are hoorah guys that really want to high five and get it going. And then we have other guys that play a ton that are just, hey, we're just going to kind of get relaxed here. There's usually a pretty packed gym and it's usually kind of pressure packed for us because of who we are. And, they just want to kind of get relaxed, which is also fine. And so, I think you got to respect all of those things while at the same time getting prepared as a unit and ready to go.
Do you guys watch through the third quarter of the JV game, or what do your guys do? So this is typically we have a game tomorrow, so it's a home game. So our routine is pretty structured. The guys that need to get taped will get taped at halftime of the JV game. And then we do this kind of team, our strength and conditioning guys, kind of take our guys through this, I don't even know what you call it, kind of getting their legs engaged, or I don't even know what the fancy term is for it, but he has one, of course. And so they've kind of got in the habit of doing that, and that starts at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And then they need to be seated and ready when I come in with 3 minutes to go in the JV game. And so whatever they need to do to get ready, it has to be ready at the 3-minute mark. And they better pay attention if you got a running clock situation going on, right?
Well, yes, that is definitely true. So I just want them ready for me when I come in, and from that point on, we're kind of all together. They do that, live warm up and all of those things. They've kind of got a routine with that, and I let them have that. And the thing is, if they think it helps, and by they, I mean the players, if they think it helps them, then it does help them. So
even if it's just a placebo effect, right? Even though it's in their head.
Correct. And so I don't, I just want them to be ready, and, ready is a different thing for everybody. And so I'm not a really hoorah guy. We just kind of go through the same things every time, and the routine is the same, which kind of gets me into, what we might talk about in our second topic. But, I tend to prepare relatively the same no matter who we're playing, when we're playing them, or anything like that. So I'm not a big hoorah guy. I obviously will, hold our guys accountable and all of those things, and get excited during games for sure. But, I think it's primarily up to each individual within the collective to be ready to go.
Yeah, I think that, to me, I always try to look at it from the point of view of a player, because as a coach standing on the sideline, yeah, we can go back to the way that you did it earlier in your career, where we have drill X, drill Y, drill Z, and we have these specific things that we're trying to do. But ultimately, like you said, you end up getting frustrated over whatever. I remember when I was at Kent, and our assistant coaches would stand on the baseline, and during warmups, when we were doing whatever drills we were doing, like if guys weren't going hard enough or were doing something that they deemed incorrect, like you're getting yelled at during warmups as you're trying to prepare yourself for the game. And I know, again, speaking as a former player, that there were things that I wanted to do, things that I felt helped me to be prepared. And to what you and Jason were talking about, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But in my own mind, I feel like these were the things that I needed to do in order to get myself ready to play, whether that be something that I'm physically doing or where I'm at mentally, whatever. And so I think as a coach, I like how you framed it as it's up to the individual player, but we're still kind of doing it within a sort of an amoeba type framework, where there's some,
no doubt,
there's some movement within, like, okay, we're going to shoot for 6 or 7 minutes, but if instead of getting shots up, you want to spend half that time doing some static stretching or doing some zigzag dribbling, great, if that's what helps you to prepare. But that's sort of the time for when that type of thing is occurring. And I do think that putting the prep in the hands of the players is the right way to go. And then if it doesn't work, if, as you said, you come out and every game you're falling behind 10-2 and it takes you half a quarter before shots start going in, okay, then maybe as the coach, I need to step in and say, hey, we shouldn't just be static stretching for 15 minutes here when we come out. We need to be getting ourselves moving and get some shots up and that kind of thing. But I think generally speaking, players know what they need to do in order to be prepared, especially when you're talking about, it's one thing if you have a third grade basketball team that really doesn't have any experience and doesn't know what to do. It's another thing when you're talking about your team full of players who are experienced high school players who are high level, going to go on in some cases and play college basketball, or you're talking about a college basketball team. I think the players at that level know what it takes to be able to step out on the floor and have themselves ready to go.
And I think, I say this to our guys all the time, you don't want me involved. Because if I'm involved, then something has gone awry, because what the expectations are. And we talk about, it's not like our warm-up is just willy-nilly and everybody's doing their own thing. That's not what it is. And we talk about it ahead of time. Hey, what do we want to get accomplished? What do you think we should do? What works best for you guys? What do you think? And then we talk. And so, it gives them a little ownership. And I'll give you an example. A couple of games ago, one of our kids, 8th or 9th guy on our team, I just watching him shoot around, and he's shooting left-handed and he's right-handed. Well, 15 years ago, I would have been furious with that kid, and I would have been having a conversation with him before the game even started. This happened 3 or 4. I didn't say one word to him. I don't care. If he thinks that's getting him ready. Now, obviously, if he's just chucking up, half-court shots, that's another.
I was going to say, what about half-court shots?
That's another whole
backwards
thing.
Half-court shots? What about that one?
But you watch Steph warm up, and he does some crazy stuff out there that if some of my kids would do it, people would be like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. And so, I think there's just a level to it, and your guys, and your culture, and if you can just feel it, right? And so, that's kind of how we handle it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. If I was just starting, I might do it a different way, and I did do it a different way when I first started. But now, I don't really even pay attention to the warmups. And maybe it's more for my own sanity than for anyone else's. I don't even watch the warmups. I'm not concerned with it unless somebody's hurt or something like that. And then I might watch how a kid's moving off his ankle or, cutting or something like that.
These warm-ups are designed to keep Rob Brost's blood pressure low.
Right.
That's what this warm-up is designed.
What about your son? Do you watch your son more than, or do you not? Same tactics.
I don't, same tactic, but I'd be lying to you if I said, his mom and his sister didn't watch every warm-up. Like, oh man, he was hot during the warm-up. He didn't miss a shot. Well, okay, I get that. So we're playing a game here. So, usually when nobody's in front of him, he does make most of his shots.
Mike sends me texts about his son during warm-ups when he goes to the game sometimes.
Yeah, now when my son is warming up, and that's pretty much what he gets to do. He's played in like 6 games out of their 16, but he'll throw down some. So in college, he's throwing down some dunks and warm up. So that's my excitement during games. He sent me
a picture one time of a pregame dunk champion.
That's good. I did that to give you a little perspective. I did that with my daughter when she was in 6th grade because she didn't play at all,
Okay, there you go.
And it wasn't. She just wasn't good enough. So we literally would record the layup lines, and then we would compare that to the next game's layup lines and see if she could make a few more the next time because she wasn't very good. So
she does not play basketball anymore, Rob?
She does not play basketball. The 6th grade, that was it. That was it. She's a dancer, done. And so we still joke about how we counted every shot that she made in the warm-up.
Plus, you got to have something to send a relative.
That's right.
Besides, you got to have
exactly right.
You got to have something to send away.
Now she's 20, and so now she's completely retired from basketball, obviously. But that 6th grade year was her max out.
Jay, what do you do with your teams, warm up wise?
We have a kind of a set routine. We try to follow what the high school program does since it's a middle school program. But at middle school level, I'm sure Rob knows this. I mean, I don't know what it's like in his state, but a lot of times the amount of time that my 8th grade team has totally depends on the place that we're playing. So when we play a home game, the kids tend to get 8 minutes, but from when the 7th grade game ends to the 8th grade game starts. Now, if tonight, for example, we had a later game, so my guys had a shoot around beforehand, so I wasn't super concerned. But if it's a away game, sometimes we get 7 minutes, and I don't have a place for them to shoot before or earlier in the time. So it really, really, really varies. My main thing is I want guys to get up, like Rob said, get shots up. I used to do 3-on-2-on-1, and then I had a bad experience where my kids were playing 3-on-2-on-1, and the kid broke his ankle in 3-on-2-on-1, and not like it's going to not happen in a game, but I was I'm never going to do that in a warm up again. The way that we were doing it. We do a 2-on-1 instead of a 3-on-2 situation, just because it's less chaotic. And the other thing is middle schoolers aren't as controlled with their bodies, so in a half court space, it's a little more difficult. So so I've adjusted that, but for the most part, we want to get shots up. I'm not as worried about it in home games because we practice in the gym that we play. It's the away games. I want to get way more shots up. So that's the main focus. And then I normally call them over depending on how much warm up time there is. We've talked about our theoretical game plan, but they know what the expectations were. And tonight, for example, there's a kid on the team that we played that is going to be going to Ignatius. He's has been dropping 35 to 40 points in a middle school basketball game, consistently. So my game plan was we're going to sell out on him and make someone else beat us. And he only had 15 tonight. So I felt like that was pretty productive. We were very, very productive. We lost, but we did a good job forcing. The game plan was there. So they knew the game plan. As long as they know the game plan, they get shots up. That's the main goal. So
I would agree with that. I think that you could sum it up that way, is just, again, have your players ready to play, whatever that means for them, and get shots up and understand what's about to happen. So I think that's all good advice. All right, topic number 2. Rob sort of alluded to it earlier, but topic number 2 is preparing your team for state tournament / postseason play, and just how you approach that, whether it's mentally what you're talking about with your team, preparing for a specific opponent. And I know that, Rob, you've said that you kind of like to keep things the same and prepare for each game in a similar fashion. But is there anything specific to preparing for a tournament opponent, whether that be what you do on the practice floor or whether you do that in scouting, that kind of thing?
I think the prep for us as coaches is much more intense than a regular season game, especially as we move forward in the playoffs. But for the players, I want it to be not exactly the same, but close. And so, the information that we choose to give them will pare down like it's a regular scout. And then I think most importantly, the most important thing that I think about in the playoffs is, are we healthy and are we rested? And so, you'll have a practice before a game in the playoffs where we'll just watch 20 minutes of film. We'll walk through a couple inbounds underplays or maybe their favorite sets. We'll walk through and that'll be it. And we'll leave. That'll be the day before. And so I think I've changed in that respect as well. I think, if our top guys are not healthy and are not fresh, we're not going to win. And so that's my main thing. And then I don't want to overload them with information. Of course, we know every single set that the other team has run the last 5 games. Of course, we know that. But we're going to pick out the top 2 or 3, and we're going to defend those. And then we're going to defend actions that we've been defending all season. And so I don't want them to overthink it, and I don't want them to perceive that we are preparing in a different way, because then that makes, subconsciously or otherwise, makes them think what we were doing before wasn't good enough or wasn't right. And so how we do things is how we do them. And, obviously we adjust a little bit as a staff. And as you know, I go a ton on feel and just how I feel about my team and what they need. My assistants do a great job with scouting, and, they'll send me, 73 clips and then I'll say, you got to get it down to 10 or whatever it is. And then, we'll discuss which 10 those are and all of those things. And so, it's very strategic from a standpoint of what we're presenting to the players, but the actuality of it, I want it to come off like it's exactly the same, right? Because at the end, it is about the same as the regular game, because we're giving them relatively the same amount of film, relatively the same amount of sets and all of those things. But we know as a staff, everything that there is to know, I think, about the opponent. And it's too much if you ask me. And my assistant, well, maybe we need to meet it. And no, we're good. We're good. And I can appreciate those guys, because I'm probably too far on the other side. Now I'm probably too far on the, hey, we're good side. And they do a really good job of preparing not only me, but our guys with the pertinent information that they need.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so like for us, for my tournament, we play only in our conference primarily. Like most of the games that I play in my season are conference games. And then the tournament comes around and I've already played the teams. So like the kids know the tendencies, and they know, sometimes, in years past we've had film. We definitely have film this year. We may have got a camera at the middle school level this year for the first time. So, we've been able to like take the camera and film and actually talk about things a little more constructively than when I had some random 8th grader filming it in the stands, and you'd hear their conversation while you're talking about it. And it was not something that I necessarily wanted to hear. Whereas with the huddle cam, you just hear fans yelling and things.
Sure.
So, but it is nice to have that. And, what's really nice is just having, I know you guys, obviously our kids love watching film for whatever reason. My kids do, and seeing themselves, and, sometimes it's positive reasons. Sometimes they just want to look at each other and clown on them a little bit, but I just, but it's definitely being able to look at the film, talking about their tendencies, and we know what we're going against,
Yeah, no question.
because we've already played them all. So it's not like I'm going to get surprised. I will say my favorite tactic is, like, one year I got the tournament bracket, and I found out that I was playing the guy in the tournament like 2 days after I played them in the regular season. So I just like sat in a 2-3 zone the whole game. And so he had planned his next 2 practices to break a 2-3 zone, which I did not run the whole tournament game. It was one of my favorite memories because he totally had spent the whole time planning against the 2-3 zone. So I was like, we're going to do everything that we don't do today. We're just going to go out there and have fun. So, but that was when I was young and dumb. But it is, like I said, we know the tendencies and we know what they're doing. So,
when, Rob, did you sort of flip on the philosophy of that rest versus, hey, we got to go hard the day before a game? How long were you into your time at Bolingbrook before you
probably only
to the realization
3 or 4 years into it?
Okay,
because to win at the level that we're expected to win or is expected of us, we need our top players to be fresh and healthy. And so, I will say, as you move through the tournament, and we've been lucky enough to play in the state finals 3 times, and as you move along, the information that you're presented is much greater, right? Like, when we're in the Elite 8, for some reason, as soon as we win, I'm getting bombarded with tape from, everybody that I didn't even ask for. And now all of a sudden I have 20 games on our next opponent. And so, you really have to do a good job of sifting out what's important and what you really need to do to help you win the game. And so that's what I try to think of now. Like, is this going to help us win or isn't it? And a lot of it is too much. I think a lot of it is overload. I think a lot of it is just too much. I hear coaches we watched an hour of film yesterday. That will not happen at Bolingbrook High School in one setting. No chance. And I know there's guys out there like, really? It's so valuable. Well, I get it. I get that it's valuable, and we watch it too, and we send clips to our guys and all of those things. We do all of that, but I just am now convinced that too much is too much. And so I just want our kids to be able to play free, so to speak, and be able to, make decisions as they go rather than trying to guess what the decision should be. And before it happens, obviously we scout our teams as well as anybody, I think. And that's due to my assistant coaches and how well they prepare our kids, for each team. And so, I hear it mostly from Trey because I live with him, and Coach G is the best scout guy that I've ever seen. Well, he's only really played for one guy. Coach G is in charge of all of our scouts. So he does a really good job with doing it. But mostly we want our guys to be able to play free and lose.
I've always been of the mindset too, Rob, that I feel like if you take care of what you do, that ultimately that's the best way to win games. And if you're uber focused on what the other team is doing, then I feel like, especially at the high school level, that you lose a little bit of remembering that, hey, we've got to do what we do. And too often, I think when you over-scout, when you overshare, when you overwork your team, I've always felt like the teams get burdened down physically and mentally, and then they're not, as you said, they're not playing free and they're not playing at their best. And I know that teams that I coached, I feel like they were at their best when we focused on what we had to do, what we were doing, what we were trying to accomplish, as opposed to trying to react to what the opponent was doing. And going back a long, long time to when I was playing, I always felt like, yeah, it was nice to know some of the tendencies maybe of the guys that I was defending, like individually. And of course, it was a different time where you didn't switch and have all the defensively, the game was played in a much different way back then. But I always felt like if I had just a little bit of information about the player that I was guarding, most of the other stuff was superfluous to my performance as a player and to our performance as a team. And so I do think that what you've done in terms of yeah, we as a coaching staff have all the prep that we need. We know all the things that need to be known so that in case maybe there's one situation in a game, maybe there's a timeout where there's one thing that you have to pass along that maybe in that moment could make a difference. But yet at the same time, you're not overburdening your team. And then again, I think that it's amazing how the game from a coaching perspective has changed in terms of how coaches have come to recognize the value of rest and the value of having your players fresh. And I know I've said this to you before, but I think about the times when I was in college, and I think my junior and senior year, I probably played 36 or 37 minutes a game and basically never came out unless there was a blowout or I had foul trouble or whatever. And yet the day after a game, like let's say we played a Wednesday, Saturday, the day after a game, that Thursday, well, you're 2 days away from another game. And that was a 2.5 hour practice in February between game 23 and 24. And it didn't matter if you had played 0 minutes or you were like me and you had played 37. We were going hard that day. And then the day before a game, you're going an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. And look, I didn't know any better at the time, but you look back on it and say, what could we have done had we done it and it had a different approach? And it's just interesting the way that coaches have come to understand that having your guys fresh is probably more important than beating them into the ground.
Load management.
Learn one more set. Yeah. I mean, again, it's not, it is load management in a sense of
practice management.
You're having an understanding. Well, you're having an understanding of what your guys are physically capable of and how often you can put your best effort out on the floor. And obviously any coach, you want the best effort that your team puts out on the floor, not to be in practice 2 days before the game. You want the best effort that they're going to put forth to be on game day. And so how do you get them to that point? I think that's where coaches have become a lot smarter.
And I think one really quick story, we were in a playoff game. This was like 6 or 7 years ago at an opposing school. And there was a game before ours, and somehow we got back into the locker room and there was a scouting report from the other team in our locker room of us. And I mean, That thing was 20 plus pages long. I mean, he had stats from the last 5 games on all of our top 8 guys. I don't even know how he got them. And I don't even know if they're active. But then I saw that and I was like, dude, I am never, ever giving this to our players. Like anything even remotely close to this. And it was
Did you
like,
win that game, Rob?
Yeah, we did. But it was everything down to, okay, if we need to foul and these 5 guys are on the floor, this is who it will be. Okay, well, we have that too, but the coaches have that. And then guess what? I can tell the guys that are in the game that. Instead of making to study that beforehand, and then a coach say, well, you know who to foul? You know, if these 5 guys are no. We're not doing any of that. And I know there's some coaches out there who are probably listening to this like, this guy's not prepared. He's never ready. And you could make that argument for our teams for sure. But this is the way we do it. And I
think 400 wins says otherwise.
Well, I mean, you're
just Rob. You're just the Google. Yeah. You're just the Google of your team. Your players just can ask who do we foul. They don't have to have that memorized. They don't have to have that. We do
have that information. We just don't present it to them prior to the game. And guess how many?
That's a need to know basis.
Yeah,
situation.
We played 23 games so far this year, 24, whatever it is. And you know how many times we've needed that? Never in these games. Now we might need it. That's why we have the information, because we might need it. My point is, you don't have to present it to them and make them memorize and all of that stuff. So anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. Coaches, Game Changer is making your game film more valuable than ever. New this season to Game Changer, Film Room allows team staff to analyze full game videos, add comments to specific moments, and quickly share feedback with other coaches, team members, or families. The #1 youth sports app automatically skips downtime in the game film, condensing event video into active play so you can focus on the moments that matter. The best part? It's completely free for coaches. Download Game Changer now on iOS or Android and take your coaching to the next level with Film Room on Game Changer. Game Changer. Stream, score, connect. All right, topic number 3.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this one. And the question I threw at you was lessons that you've learned as a parent that have made you a better coach.
I think the biggest thing, you always expect more from your own kid. And this is obviously playing out for me, like right in front of me, because my son is our starting point guard and was last year, and knock on wood will be next year. And so, I think just being patient and letting the players, and in this case, my own son, work through whatever he needs to work through, just like I would with any other player. If one of our top guys doesn't play particularly well, we don't have a meeting about it or talk about it. He needs to work through that and be ready to go the next day of practice. Same thing with Trey. And so I've learned, just to be patient with the whole thing and be patient with my team, because everyone is doing the best they can when they're out there. And so, they're not playing necessarily the best that they're able to, but they're doing the best they can when they're out there. No one is messing up on purpose. And so I think patience has been a really critical thing for me. And then the humility part of it plays a huge role for me. Everybody talks about our games, and, we've lost games before too, and it'll be okay if we lose one. And we lost one on Saturday. And so, anything that happens is going to be good because we can learn from whatever it is. And we got killed on the glass on Saturday. And so, we've enacted a couple things in practice that I think are going to help us. And they did help us for Tuesday's game. And I think they're really going to help us for Friday's game. And so what happened on Saturday was good for us. And I know everyone hates to lose, and we certainly hate to lose in a huge game like it was on Saturday. But, I think at the end of the day, it's going to help us as a group, and it's going to help our guys individually as well.
I was going to say patience was mine. And when I was first coaching middle school basketball and I didn't have kids, I was not patient with them at all. And I've gotten way more patient with them. And the other thing is ironic because I like to be in the classroom. I like to be like the funny guy because I could make the kids laugh. But I've just learned to laugh at things when they happen and move on, because you're like, how is this even real? How is this even real life that this just happened in the game? Like, I'll talk. There's a kid on my team, for example, tonight, and there's been a few games he's a little out of control with some of his shots, and I had a conversation with him. I was like, listen, you just got to get in control. And 3 seconds left in the quarter, he gets the ball and gets trapped, and the quarter bell goes off, and he takes a good shot right after the buzzer, and it goes in. And I go, you knew there was 3 seconds? He's like, well, you've told me to stay in control and not just chuck up a shot. And I'm like, I just laughed. I was like, I can't even be mad at him because he did exactly what I asked him to do. And I was frustrated because he of course made it, by the way, but luckily he was able to take that into the fourth quarter, and he made 2 threes in the fourth quarter. So it was good. It was good for him to see that ball go through the net. But it's just patience and just laugh when situations happen and move on, and don't let things fester, for sure.
I think the other thing that I've learned is not to react to every single thing that happens. And so, the stuff, when you sit where I sit, people are going to come to you with various things every single day. What about our team meal? What about this? What's happening? This is happening. So-and-so just got a D on his bio. We're not going to have a reaction to every single thing. We're going to take care of what we need to take care of, and we're going to do what we need to do, but we're not going to have an emotional reaction to every single thing that comes up. And that includes during the game, that we're not going to, there's no room for panic. I say that all the time to our guys. And so, that's just one of the things that has helped me both as a parent and as a coach. Just, we're not going to react to every single thing. And, oh, well, so-and-so's, okay. Well, we'll deal with that when it's time to deal with that. Well, what are you going to do? I'll deal with that when it's time to deal with that. So I think those are the big things for me individually.
Yeah, no, I think all four of those things that you guys just shared, patience definitely is something that I think anybody who has become a parent realizes that if you don't have patience, that your life as a parent is going to be pretty miserable. And I think as a coach, if you can take that lesson to heart, I certainly think that there's value in that. And I think the emotional side of it, again, Rob, is something that when you talk to coaches who have experience, almost all of them say, when I was younger, I was much more emotional. I was much more reactive to things that were happening on the floor. I got angrier. I'm thinking about you just 20 minutes ago talking about how you used to get angry during warmups about what your team was doing. And certainly I think that developing that emotional stability to be able to put something aside and not react to it in the moment, I think that's a strength as a parent, as a coach. And Jason, you're laughing at situations. I don't necessarily, I've thought about that as a coach, but I definitely think about that as a teacher. I mean, there's times where I got a class that's just going, like, I'll be coaching or I'll be teaching one of my kindergarten classes, and I'll just sit there and I'll look around the room and I'll be like, oh my God, like I can't even believe I can't believe what I'm seeing, like what they're doing compared to what they're supposed to be doing. And I'll just laugh sometimes, be like, it is what it is. They're 5 and they're not ready to do X, Y, or Z. They're just going to run around and scream and act crazy. And maybe they just need to do that for 10 minutes. And I just need to sit here and accept that that's what's going to happen. And then, so I think for me, when I think about a lesson that I've learned as a parent that I've been able to apply to coaching situations, it's making sure that I'm not always focused on the negative and not always seeing the mistakes. When I think about myself as a young coach, I think about somebody who sat and watched practice or coached a practice and just was always trying to not necessarily pick out the negative, but just always trying to make corrections, which means in essence, I'm looking for mistakes that players have made. And I know that I'm probably unusual as a parent as a sports parent watching my own kids, in that I usually see all the things that they do wrong. And when somebody tells me, oh, your kid really did a good job of this, or they played really well, I'll always say, yeah, they did a good job. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, but, and then I have a list of 20 things that they could have done better. And I think as a coach and as a parent, what I've learned is that oftentimes it makes a lot more sense to keep those lists of negatives to myself and maybe find 1 or 2 things that are actionable that my kids or my players could improve on, and instead focus on all the good things that they're doing and try to encourage those behaviors, both with my kids as a parent and with my teams as a coach. And it's not necessarily easy for me to do that. It's something I consciously have to make sure that I'm focused on, hey, you did a really good job of this, this, and this, even though I might have 25 things that, gosh, if you had just done this, this, and this, your performance or my team's performance would have been so much better. And so I don't know if either of you have kind of experienced that piece of it. And obviously, Rob, you with Trey on your team, do you have the added bonus of not just critiquing him as his dad, but also critiquing him as his coach and trying to get the most out of him and push him, and you have an added incentive beyond just him playing well for your team, but also just again as a parent wanting to see him do well.
No doubt, and you bring up a good point on the pointing out mistakes, and I think I'm probably better at that with my players than I am with Trey, if that makes sense, because I expect
it does
more from him because I've been around him and I know what I know what all our guys are capable of, but I am harder on him than I am the other guys, but I try not to overdo that piece of it. And we don't talk basketball a lot in our house or really anywhere unless he brings it to me. And I just want it to be, relatively normal. And he'll bring some things up like, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? But it's usually a day or two after, said event has happened. So, I think you bring up a good point about, pointing out the positive things and really sandwiching the positive things, maybe with one thing that they could improve on, but sandwich it around some positive comments as well. And I think in general, that's what I'm pretty good at with our players. I need to get better at that with Trey for sure. And he probably echoed that as well.
Well, I think the thing is, Rob, too, is that your expectation for your own kid is you've been around him since birth, and he's heard you. He's heard your messaging from the time that he could function. And so then when he's not living up to that standard, then you can. It's harder, I think, maybe to accept the fact that, like, look, man, I've been telling you this for.
Did you coach him when he was a young kid?
I didn't coach him at all when he was younger. I purposely didn't. I got asked to, will you do the 4th grade team? Will you do the 5th grade team? And I purposely didn't even help where he was. Now, obviously, we did some stuff. I didn't know if
that was a rule that you were even allowed to do it or not.
Yeah, I mean, they have specific rules, like you can only coach 3 of your guys, at a time or whatever it is. But I tried to stay out of the whole AAU thing, as Mike knows, because we met up in Louisville the one time, and I just want to be able to watch and enjoy, what's happening. And now that's even getting harder because now he's, they're on the Under Armour circuit. So now there's pressure to win and they get shoes. And now it's like, it's just not, I don't want to say it's not enjoyable, but it's
not your favorite. It's not your favorite. Rob.
Right.
It's not your.
Yes. And he's on a high level team and, so I'm always thinking like, can we push the ball a little bit more? Can we share the ball? But obviously I don't say any of that to anyone.
You're like Mike, who you just sit in the stands quietly and you don't say anything.
Like I'll say, let's go if we're not hustling or something like that. But I won't ever say, can we get Trey some more shots or can we just let Trey things kind of go through Trey sometimes, which, now it's on this national podcast, but sometimes I want to say those things like, hey, he will spray it to the other guys. Just let him have it. And then he'll get it to the guys that have to. But I get it. There's a lot of factors, and he has some high profile guys on his team. And so I get all of that. And so, I think that gives me perspective as well. And I just want to watch him play and just enjoy watching him compete. And, whatever happens out there. And, it's been a fun year and a half that he's been, as a sophomore, he was on the varsity. And, I'm looking forward to the next year and a half here as well.
Absolutely. I think what's interesting, Rob, is just hearing you talk about that AAU experience. And I know we've talked about it before, but when you watch a game as a parent, you watch that game through the lens of your own kid. And so there's times where, you're watching that game and you're thinking, Trey should have the ball.
Right.
And you're probably right.
Yeah.
But there's also, you don't know all the things that are going on with that coach and their relationship with this other player or their relationship with this other family or because there's always, no matter what we want to say, there are always things that creep into decisions that are made on a basketball court. And when you're not at practice all the time. And so it's very, very difficult as a parent to sit in the stands and look, I'm as guilty of this as anybody. Usually the only person that ever gets to hear those thoughts are the little person inside of me that I have conversations with.
Sometimes you'll
Jason will sometimes hear things in a private conversation, usually not on a podcast, or my wife.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. My wife will come up to me and say,
right.
What are we doing? I don't know. I'm not sure what we're doing.
Yep. It's hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And those conversations and those thoughts are, you forget when you're watching the game as a parent that coaches have lots of things going on, lots of things that play into the decisions that they make. And as much as you wish they would look at things only through the lens of your child, they just don't. And usually by the end of my own personal conversation with myself, I'm able to, at least to some degree, get to an understanding of what the coach is saying. And I just know Jason is smiling at me. He's smiling at me, but there is, I'm not saying I agree with every single situation, but listen, I'm saying that
most people are not, no one's watching this, Mike. You didn't have to make that comment. I was just smiling. I was doing.
No, I know, but look, it's worth me addressing. I'm just saying that when you get into a situation and you really look at it, you try to be unbiased.
No question.
And you realize, and again, the coaching profession and coaching a team from the inside is way more difficult than any single person outside of that team environment understands, because there are so many things coming at you as a coach from your players, the parents of your players, your administration, your assistant coaches, whoever. And all of those things, regardless of whether they hold 50% of your weight or they hold 0.002% of the weight, they do have an effect on the decisions that you make. And until you're there in that position, Rob, nobody knows what that coach really is trying to accomplish.
I really like Trey's AAU coach and the program he plays for, and all the players and all the parents, or I wouldn't let him play for them anyway. And so,
absolutely,
you just want what is best for your son, and you're always thinking like, is this the exact right situation? And it's never going to be the exact right situation, right? Like I tell my guys, it's never going to be perfect.
Exactly.
And it's never going to be perfect for him. So, those things I've learned to accept because I am a coach and because I've sat in those seats and I know some of the factors, and I don't want to be a contributor to those factors because, they're doing a really good job given all the factors that, are coming up. So, and that's in large part why I didn't want to coach AAU and all of those things, because, there's so many of those things that play into it, and the limited practice time and a myriad of other things, but that's a topic for another day. So, but you're exactly right.
Triple double number 17, topic number
16,
1, why
Mike.
Rob doesn't want to coach. Why? I said, no. Next time, see, you're jumping the gun at me here. You're already trying to cut me off and to act like I don't know what I'm doing over here. Triple double number 17, topic number 1, why Coach Brost does not want to coach AAU.
Man, that might be the only topic necessary.
There we go. Might be the single. Single.
AAU bingo.
Yeah,
that's the first one.
There it is.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
I like it. All right. Well, triple double number 16 in the books. Rob, can't thank you enough for taking the time again to share your insights on those 3 topics. Jason, thanks for sharing your insights. We got a lot of input from you tonight.
Yeah,
and it was impressive.
You kind of thought you weren't gonna really contribute to this one, and then you went.
It was your eloquent speaking, Hall of Fame Rob Brost, that made me inspired to share my stories.
This might have been your high game. This might have been your career high.
I think it is.
Words per minute. We're gonna have to look it up. We're gonna have to do a transcription or something and see what you came up with.
Well, did I say more words than Mike Klinzing tonight?
It's possible.
You might have. It was close. It was close.
Yeah,
it was close. All right, gentlemen. Thanks for checking out tonight's triple double number 16. Everyone, really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.
Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.